There's a small patch of land in southern Illinois quiet now, overgrown, almost forgotten. But 200 years ago, this wasn't just empty space. This was Davis Prairie, and it was home to the most feared woman in Williamson County. Her name was Eva Locker. Between the years 1818 and 1835, whispers turned into legends. They said witches walked this very land real ones. Not the kind you read about in fairy tales or children's stories. These were flesh and blood, and none of them, not a single one, was as feared as Eva. People said she could curse you with just a glance, that a mere whisper of her name could make old women tremble and the young fall into fits and spasms. Some called it witchcraft. Others, perhaps more skeptical, called it mass hysteria. But back then, in those days when modern medicine was scarce and faith was practically law, the line between the two was thinner than smoke. The fear was real, no matter its source. The story of Eva Locker is a chilling chapter in American folklore, a tale that intertwines with the very real anxieties of pioneer life. To understand Eva, we have to understand the world she lived in. Southern Illinois in the early 19th century was the frontier. It was a place of immense hardship, isolation, and uncertainty. Settlers faced disease, crop failure, and the constant looming threat of the unknown. Life was fragile. When a child fell sick with a fever that no one understood, or when a cow suddenly stopped giving milk, people desperately needed an explanation, a target for their fear and frustration. In this volatile environment, it was all too easy for suspicion to fall on someone who was different. Eva Locker was different. She wasn't just a name in a ghost story. She was a real person. Born around 1785, Eva was a midwife and a healer. She possessed a deep knowledge of local herbs and traditional remedies, skills that were both essential and deeply suspect in a community steeped in superstition. She could bring a fever down with a poultice or ease the pain of childbirth with a tincture. To some, she was a blessing. To others, her knowledge was unnatural, a sign of something darker. One of the most famous stories about Eva Locker involves a young woman named Nancy. Nancy was known for her beauty and spirit, but one day she fell gravely ill. She was plagued by violent convulsions, fits that twisted her body into unnatural shapes. Doctors, or what passed for them on the frontier, were baffled. They had no answers. As Nancy's condition worsened, the community's fear grew, and soon, all eyes turned to Eva Locker. The rumor was that Nancy had slighted Eva in some way, and the sickness was Eva's revenge. The community, desperate for a cure, decided to take matters into their own hands. They believed in a chilling piece of folklore known as witch drawing. The idea was that if you could draw the blood of the witch who cast the spell, the curse would be broken. So a group of men, led by Nancy's own family, confronted Eva. They accused her, cornered her, and using a silver pin, because it was believed only silver could harm a witch, they pricked her skin, drawing a single drop of blood. Miraculously, or so the story goes, Nancy began to recover almost immediately. Her fits subsided and her strength returned. For the people of Davis Prairie, this was undeniable proof. Eva Locker was a witch, and they had beaten her at her own game. This event cemented her reputation, transforming her from a local healer into a figure of pure terror. From that day on, every misfortune, every unexplained illness, every stroke of bad luck in the county was laid at her feet. But was she really a witch? Or was she a victim of something just as sinister, mass hysteria and scapegoating? Let's look at the evidence. The fits and spasms described sound remarkably similar to what we might today diagnose as epilepsy or even conversion disorder, where extreme psychological stress manifests as physical symptoms. The frontier was a pressure cooker of anxiety. For a young woman like Nancy, the social pressures, the hardships, and the ever-present fear of death could easily have triggered a severe psychosomatic response. And what about her miraculous recovery? The placebo effect is a powerful phenomenon. If Nancy and her entire community believed, with every fiber of their being, that drawing Eva's blood would cure her, that collective belief could have been enough to trigger a genuine psychological and physiological recovery. The mind has a profound influence over the body, something we're only now beginning to fully understand. Eva's story is not unique. Throughout history, women who were independent, knowledgeable, or simply didn't fit the mold were often labeled as witches. Healers and midwives, in particular, walked a dangerous line. They held the power of life and death in their hands, a power that many men found threatening. Their knowledge of the natural world was seen as an alternative to the male-dominated worlds of organized religion and formal medicine, making them easy targets. Eva Locker, it seems, lived out the rest of her days under a cloud of fear and suspicion. Local records show she passed away around 1845, but her legend didn't die with her. It grew, twisted, and became a cornerstone of Illinois folklore. For generations, parents would warn their children about the witch of Davis Prairie, about the old woman who could curse you with her evil eye. Her name became a boogeyman, a cautionary tale whispered around campfires. But there's another layer to this story, one that's often overlooked. The legend of Eva Locker is also a story about community. It's about how people band together in the face of the unknown. Their methods were brutal, their conclusions misguided, but their actions stemmed from a very human place. The desire to protect their own, to make sense of a chaotic world, and to fight back against the darkness they perceived, even if that darkness was just a reflection of their own fears. The so-called witch of Williamson County was likely not a witch at all. She was a woman living in a time that was not ready for her. She was a healer in an era that feared what it could not explain. She was a scapegoat for a community drowning in its own anxieties. Her power wasn't supernatural. It was the power of knowledge, the power of independence. And in the harsh world of the American frontier, that was enough to make her the most feared woman in the county. Today, Davis Prairie is peaceful. The fields are overgrown, and the foundations of those old cabins have long since turned to dust. There are no signs left of the fear that once gripped this land. But if you stand here and you listen closely, you can almost hear the echoes of the past. The whispers of a name that once made people tremble, Eva Locker. It serves as a haunting reminder of how easily fear can turn a neighbor into a monster, and how a healer can become a witch in the eyes of the terrified. The story isn't just about a witch, it's about us. It's about our own fears, our own beliefs, and the stories we tell ourselves to make it through the night. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. It's these hidden histories that really tell us who we are. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more explorations into the forgotten corners of the past. Let me know in the comments what you think. Was Eva Locker a witch or a victim of her time? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious.